Well, according to the clock, it's 5:30, so I'd like to call to order the regular May board meeting of the Madison Central School District. Mr. Brooks will record the members present or absent, and we do have a quorum, so we'll move on next to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is item number 5, approval of the agenda. I believe we have no changes to come forth, so it would be the agenda as published. Is there a motion and a second to approve that? So moved by Mrs. Thompson to approve the agenda. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Moore is a second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that has passed. Item number 6 is approved consent agenda items. On that, we have item number 7, which is the approval of our regular meeting of April 13th. Then Mr. Moore, Mrs. Sims, and Mrs. Thompson review bills and financials. Anything for the group that you want to share? And then that takes us on to number 9 of personnel actions. Mr. Schaefer, anything you want to mention there?
Well, they're pretty much self-explanatory. We are glad to say that today's the first day for our new transportation director, Stan Fox, and so he was on board this morning and actually working on repairs to buses as the day went on. And otherwise, it's pretty much run of the mill, just normal business, you might say. We are bringing Laura Kite as the elementary middle school language pathologist, speech pathologist, to replace Laura Bergeline, who has resigned, and everything else pretty much regular business. Recommend your approval.
Okay, so the administration has recommended approval of personnel actions as a part of our consent agenda items. Somebody wish to make a motion regarding the consent items?
So moved.
Move to approve by Mr. Moore. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hague. Further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the approval of the consent items 7 through 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that those have passed. That takes us on to number 10, hearing of delegations. Anyone wishing to address the board at this point in time? Okay, then I guess that takes us on to item number 11, administrative reports. Mr. Schaefer, we'll let you orchestrate that.
Let's see, Adam, do you have an administrative report you want to give? Okay, you go first.
Okay. Mine will probably be short, hopefully. Schedule is done for 15-16. We are right now in the process of balancing our kids' schedules for next year. We're going to try and have those all done before they leave for summer break. Then if they need to make changes, we're going to try and get that done in August, either before registration or during the registration time, so that when we hit the ground running the first day of school, we're not changing 50 schedules, hopefully. So, I got graduation on Sunday at 2 in the gym, so we're looking forward to that, and seniors will be done here on Friday. I know that in the past we've brought our handbooks to you. I will start working on mine as soon as school gets out, and then I'll run it through the board. Right now I don't have time to be organizing a handbook for next year, but we'll get that done here in the first part of June before, so you have time to look at that. I did hand out a piece of paper that looks like this, and what that is, we received the EPSCoR grant, which was $30,000, and so I had Rob and I had been working on this process. So one of the components is we had to spend $30,000 by June 30th. And one of the pieces we wanted to put in was a robotics component, but also a programming component. So what we're going to do is we're going to purchase what are called Spiros, and we're going to purchase what's called Action Dots, and those are both programming components. We're going to purchase iPads, a Connect cart to put them in, protective cases, Apple TV, so that you can bounce the signal through these. The whole concept essentially is to enhance our computer programming curriculum in our high school, and what the Sphero does is you use the iPad and it has apps that you program these spheros with, and so the kids learn how to program. And then the dash and dots are also a programming component, but they're a robotics piece. And you use a different coding language. You use block style or Objective-C coding, so the kids are going to learn how to program. Okay. The goal is also now with the class of 2020, which would be next year's 8th graders, we're going to start this process right now of looking at requiring a computer programming credit in the high school. So we need to enhance our computer component, I think, and you're seeing a lot of schools shift this way, where that computer programming piece has become very important, especially in a lot of jobs in this world. So in order for us to continue that career-based focus in education, we're going to look at adding probably a half a credit of computer programming to the graduation requirement, but it won't be for another year down the road yet. But this gives segue into that for us, is what this will do for us. So. Questions in regards to our $30,000 purchase with somebody else's money? That's the best part.
Exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. So it is a bit of amended from what we originally were going to do, but we felt like this is the best way to get off the ground what we want to get done, and then we can add some of those other things into the project lead the way component if we want to go that down the road. But this will get what we need done right away.
Looks good.
Awesome.
Nice work.
Yeah, you bet. So that's where we're at right now. Lots of things going on and pretty crazy. End is near. Awesome.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, then from my perspective, the joint convention coming up in August, actually August 6 and 7, the School Board Association reminds you as board members that certainly invited to attend that, and they're hoping to have a higher degree of attendance on the part of school board members and administrators than they've had in the past. That'll be August 6th and 7th in Sioux Falls. We've had discussion off and on with representatives from Montrose School District in regards to a cooperative agreement with Madison Central and Montrose related to gymnastics. They have one student that wants to be involved in gymnastics. And athletic director Postma and athletic director and administration at Montrose have been in communication about this for some time. So I just bring that to you tonight as an introductory topic, and their board is considering it and probably going to approve it tonight, and we'll bring it before you in the June meeting. So you can think about that. If you have any questions, you can contact either Bud or myself about that. I want to also point out that in regards to recognition, Dr. Cook was recognized by his peers recently as he was awarded the Community Service Award through his convention just recently in Brookings. So he was nominated and selected by his organization. So congratulations to Dr. Cook on that. And then Adam Shaw was appointed to the Standards Revision Committee for Career and Tech Education. And that's because of his recent work in that area and growing notoriety with that as well. So congratulations to both of those gentlemen. I also toured the new hospital here a week or so ago, about a week ago, and the Madison Hospital is going to be an interesting and outstanding facility. There's no question about it. However, walking through there did give me a little bit of goosebumps because it reminded me of some experiences that we've had in the past. But no, it looks great. It looks fantastic. Well set up, well thought out, a lot of planning, and so they will be wrapping that up and hopefully opening it. I think in October, perhaps this fall sometimes. And I did offer the fact that the high school staff and students will do whatever we can to help them move, because there won't be any simple task moving the hospital. And the hospital actually was recently awarded this named by the top 20 of critical access hospitals in the United States by the National Rural Health Association. Actually, it's the second year in a row that they've received that, so kudos to them and their leadership team. They're the only hospital in South Dakota to have been so selected, so congratulations to Tammy Miller and the board of directors and the staff at the hospital. So other than that's the support from myself and the others in attendance. Don't have a report for you, but I know Cotton's gonna be up pretty soon anyhow, so I thought we'll call that part of it a conclusion.
I guess one thing, Mr. Schaefer, should we throw out what you and I have discussed about our planning retreat, maybe moving that earlier into the year?
Yes, that,
Rather than going as we've tried to squeeze in the past in the fall of the year, and September is when we've usually tried to do, are there thoughts by the board of trying to do it sometime over the summer? Would that be better or worse?
I think it'd be worse,
Okay,
personally.
other thoughts?
We always do that on Saturday.
We could do an evening instead of a Saturday, or a couple of evenings if we need it, I mean, whatever.
I guess it depends, it would depend on the date.
Be more difficult to find a date, you think, during the summer?
I think so. I know I have something going pretty much every night and every weekend night.
Weekends.
in
I
June
do,
and July.
June and July would be out for me.
August is a possibility.
September's out for me
Mid-July or August.
on a Saturday. Except, well, the first 2 weeks, first 2 Saturdays are out.
In September.
Yeah.
If we're to look late August, what does that, just throwing that out?
November.
Would you prefer a Saturday, or would you prefer evenings, or what?
I prefer evenings so I can fish on Saturday.
I probably would prefer evenings too.
Might mean a couple of evenings to get the amount of
Yeah.
time, but maybe.
That's fine, but then everybody still gets a weekend.
Okay. So mid to late August, looking at evenings possibly, I mean, first of all, we have to determine what we'll do for a facilitator, because Wagner's, as of the end of this week, moved to Florida, so Ralph will, don't think we have to stand much of a chance of getting him back from Florida, so we've thrown around some names possibly for facilitators, but I think that would somewhat dictate, we needed to kind of have a parameter of what we're looking at there. But, we probably would look to take formal action, I would think, in our July meeting, maybe have some informal discussions between now and in our June meeting. And I guess one other thing I want to comment on, I noticed also Mr. Shaw is presenting at the joint convention.
I am.
As I perused the program, congratulations or condolences.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
That's one session I'm going to be at.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, anything else, administrator reports?
I think we're good.
All right, item number 12, consider drama department request for admission funds. Come on down, ladies.
Hi, part of this request comes from the department in regards to next year, 2016. Our One Act is in Aberdeen, and it's very difficult for our department to raise enough money in order to maintain not only the One Act, but the spring play for what is allocated for us with. And so we wanted to pursue the aspect of utilizing our spring play funds that come in from the gate receipt for that purpose. So it wouldn't be we wouldn't be asking this all the time. It's just whenever we're off to Aberdeen, it helps to defray the costs for hotels and meals and things of that nature that come along for such an extensive travel. Most of the time, we are at either Brandon or O'Gorman, so it's never an issue there, it's just when we're headed to Aberdeen.
And then I think they'll have eventually some recipe to it.
Yeah, and that's been talked for all those long distance travels, that we're trying to find ways in which we can utilize a little bit more funding for those those years when they come about. And it's usually about every third year. And I know we had visited with Mr. Brooks. He had given us I think a background of how much typically, I think this year we bring in about 2,000 for the spring play. And then it's been, sometimes it's been a little bit more in the past. Just depends upon what if it's a musical, the musicals bring in more than what just the regular spring play brings in.
And to talk about the request, any school event, any receipts receipt back to the general fund. There's an allowance in the state statute if a group comes forward and asks for some receipts, they get one per activity per year. And so this is why they're kind of coming forward with this request. We had a lot of discussion on this because it's very different than something we've done in the past. They are in a different situation than most because they use their trust and agency account to help fund their play in their one act. A lot of the other groups, they use that for their additionals, and so like when a group goes out of town, the school will cover the transportation and those items, but the trust and agencies usually pay for $10 per student per day for meals, and that's something that they wouldn't have available to them. They don't have another activity prior to when they go to One Act in Aberdeen to ask this. It is something I hear a few schools have been doing, since then I haven't seen anything much on it. When we discussed just recently about if we should have a policy in place on this, to how to handle requests. As far as proceeding,
I guess a question, you're looking at the full 2,000 or a portion of the 2,000 or?
A portion of it,
Okay.
probably enough to cover meals for students while we're gone,
Which would be a ballpark estimate of?
between 600 and 800.
I guess my own personal opinion on this is I'd like to table the request this evening and then get appointed a committee that could write a policy. My concern is if we do it as individual board actions without policy, then every time when you want to do it, you've got to come back and you've got to come to the board each time to make the same presentation, etc. The other thing is there may be other activities that we might have to consider also, and that way if we have a policy in place, it would give the administration an opportunity to go. Now, the disadvantage with the policy is, with a new policy, because we don't have any kind of an existing policy currently, is we'd have to have a first reading for the policy in June, a second reading in July, and then we would be able to pass. But that certainly would easily fit into your timeline for there. I guess that would be my recommendation. I had a chance to visit with Mr. Brooks on it somewhat at length today also, and
he also caught us too, and forewarned us that he would just like to see this avenue taken, and we're fully aware that that's something that's good for both parties, that it's, everybody's back is covered, so we're okay with, things being able to pursue that. We'll just know then that we'll need to come back in August then. Is that something?
No, I would anticipate, Dawn, what we would do is we would formulate the policy, and hopefully the policy would address the issues for you, so you wouldn't have to continually come back to the board.
Okay, but I mean, just to come back for the request, or for that, or is this?
I guess it's preliminary, but in my own vision of the policy would take care of that for you. There'd be a policy in which we could at least refer to that would deal with this.
Okay.
And I think we've got extenuating circumstances because of the distance that you're traveling, and hang on to your horse if you do have to go west on there.
And we've talked it over that for One Act, for those purposes, for far away, we would only take enough individuals that would get into both of the suburban. So both of us would be able to drive, and we'd use
Try to keep the cost as low as possible.
And we'd use the school trailer for all of our supplies and luggage, so at least there would be that minimal. So we'd only be talking about gas for the vans, you know, the hotels and the meals while we're there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we don't know if we're gonna be assigned to a Thursday. If it is, then you've got Thursday, Friday for overnight, and then coming back, or are we gonna be a Friday and it's just a one-night thing?
Yeah.
So we're at limbo until, you know, we qualify for one.
We don't even know if we'll qualify.
Okay.
Right.
So if
Okay.
we don't, then I guess.
But it'd
it's
still be
gonna
nice to have something in plan.
Right, and so that's why we
So
were
it's not
just,
a panic moment going, all right, now what?
yeah, we were just, you know, we were just trying to, you know, do some foreshadowing and just try to find some things to, you know, where we could possibly alleviate
When
some
is
of the,
that?
it's usually the
First weekend of February.
February, and the regions are the last Wednesday of January. and
So we have
they're-
ample time.
Yes, but we just wanted to
Yep.
try to get wheels in motion to make sure all of our, Ts were crossed and Is were dotted.
We have tried, we're doing some different types of fundraising and things like that. I just added 2 fundraisers in the last 2 years that have helped, but,
I mean, it's difficult when we can't go to the booster club and, you know, obtain some funding there because they're strictly for the athletics, so then you have the, activities portion of that, you know, when you have certain activities, it just takes out.
I'm assuming the backstage backers are no longer a viable group?
No.
or-
no, and I tried really hard to keep that together,
Okay.
but it didn't. And we sent letters every play this
Okay.
is my 7th year here, so probably for the first 3 or 4 years, and there's
Okay.
only one member now, and that's Pam Rowland.
Okay.
So
I know
we,
it was a very supportive group when our daughter was going through.
Right.
and so.
Pastor Euchre left at the same time as Mr. Miller, so it kind of all,
Okay, yeah. Mr. Schaefer, does that make sense to table and look towards the policy?
I think it does.
I guess I would like to then make a motion that we table the request and that we formulate a committee to bring back a draft of a policy for consideration at the June meeting.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mrs. Thompson. Further questions or discussion? Does that seem good with you ladies?
Yep.
thank you.
Do you ladies know of any schools that have a policy or practice or procedure in place like what you mentioned?
I honestly
No,
don't
it would
know.
just, it'd be research on our part.
If you could find anybody, that would certainly help us.
Okay,
It'd be nice to have a policy, a model policy to work from, and we'll check with Associated School Boards to see if they have a model policy. Because of the state statute, it certainly, you know, there should be something out there, I would think, that we could model after.
Should we look at schools that are also A schools, or should we look at any school?
I think any school, because the state statute will apply to everybody,
Okay.
where those funds have to go in.
okay.
I guess just one other comment, Super Production enjoyed Saturday night.
Yeah, it was very good, I went Friday. It was very good.
But we got to see the nurse be the guilty one, so. I don't want to-
Emily Warren's.
She was Thursday night.
She was on Thursday night.
She was not, she played that very well.
We were very proud. Saturday night was, they really went for broke Saturday.
I heard that, I heard that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion of tabling the request with the formulation of a committee to work on a policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare the motion has passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for doing our report, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming on down now, our lucky number 13, Algebra 1 waiver. Dr. Cook, are
Thank
you?
you, yep. Just want to give you a little background on that. Recall that every 5 years we sign a waiver from the state that allows us to teach 8th grade algebra for high school credit. And I think we're probably in about our 7th or 8th year of doing that. And the reason algebra came about was when we were in trimester here at Madison. Some of you guys might still remember that. That might be a completely different board. Were you on the board then, Tom?
Nope.
We were trimester. We were in a trimester, and it was very difficult for kids sometimes to get algebra. Okay, so to get algebra without having to maybe take geometry at the same time because of the trimester. So when we shifted back to the 4x4, algebra has been pretty standard that we keep it here. So many kids take it and then they move on. What this waiver is about, though, is as part of the waiver, that we sign for 5 years, the kids have to pass a end-of-the-year course exam that's provided by the State Department of Education at an 80% accuracy, okay? We've, Mr. Ricky's had a very high percentage of that happen every year, well into the 90% of the kids who do that. And then there's some kids who just choose to go, I'm not ready for that test, or I'm not going to take a B on my transcript, and they take algebra again as a high schooler. That is an option that those kids get to have, okay? What this is about is that they have provided a new end of the course exam, but kind of forgot to tell us in some ways that they had done that. At least did not maybe do as good a job of explaining it to the teachers. So I'm just going to read you what the DOE said. It has come to our attention that there are some concerns that the established expectations for the end-of-year course exams in the areas of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, which don't affect us necessarily, are more rigorous than anticipated. As we have undergone transition to new college and career-ready standards, we have worked with South Dakota teachers to create blueprints for the courses and exams and relied on excellent high school mathematics instructors across the state to help create and review the assessments. However, we also understand that because it is the first year of implementation, we need to ensure that we are taking adequate time to examine the data to help us best understand the performance of our students across the state. To help us ensure that we proceed in a manner that best reflects the hard work occurring in our classrooms this year, we felt best to extend the opportunity for this year's districts to waive the 80% pass rate requirement for students to receive credit in that credit. South Dakota DOE will continue to work with our educators throughout the state to examine the results, the assessments, and the expectations for these courses. So essentially what that means is that our teachers kind of went into this course blind. They taught the course as they have taught it all along, thinking they were teaching toward the assessment that they have seen in the past. And so Mike essentially was teaching, and now we're finding out the assessment might not be quite what he taught. We don't know that for a fact. We start our assessment on Wednesday, so Mike will know more Wednesday afternoon how our kids did on that assessment. But it kind of hit the principal's listserv pretty hard, and most of us, there might have been one school that was not thinking about taking the waiver. Everybody else said, why wouldn't you take the waiver? Why would you not provide your students the best opportunities here in case this exam is way off guard from what the rest of us, or way off the rail from what the rest of us taught. Let's give our kids the best chance. So I'm going to recommend, and I've talked to Mr. Shaver, I've talked to Mr. Ricky, I've talked to Mr. Shaw, and Diana Tyler, our curriculum director. We're all in favor of signing a waiver and allowing our students and Mr. Ricky to work with the families to determine who should go on to get algebra credit for high school. This goes on their GPA, it counts, it goes on the transcript, so it's serious business. And it's not all based on that test. That grade is based on how well they do in algebra all year long, along with that test. So that's just part of the overall grade that goes on their GPA or on their transcript. It works as part of their GPA.
So I guess for purpose of discussion, we've got a recommendation that we go with the waiver. We could entertain a motion and then have discussion.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Moore, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Haig. Questions or discussion with Dr. Cook?
So this is a one-year waiver,
Thank
and
you.
next year they will be,
To our knowledge, it's a one-year waiver.
okay?
Yes. Yeah. And they're also, providing some pretty good guidelines and avenues for Mr. Ricky to find and understand and look at these blueprints, so he understands more about what's being taught, or what they're wanting him to teach towards that direction. So I think that's what you'll get as a one-year commitment.
Con, will you share with them what our concern is, though, that, they'll get their fourth year of math done by the time they're a junior, and some kids won't then go in and take the advanced math. And then what we're seeing is sometimes you'll see scores lag when they go and do entrance exams too by having this 8th grade algebra. Now I think at the premise at the time it was good, because it was a big push, especially through high schools at Works, when the state was going through some of those pushes that, we need to push algebra down and push algebra down. Well, I think the more we look at it, I don't know how beneficial necessarily it is. If we look at it, you're challenging those kids, but yet if they pass it, they might not take that last year of math really when they probably need it more so before they go into a college setting.
So it's possible we may see that even the discussion of whether we do algebra at the 8th grade level might be a a different discussion that we'd come forward with.
That would be a 16, 17-year discussion. But that has to be decided and talked about very early on. And in fact, I've already met with my math department to start talking about that piece because people need to know which direction we're going pretty soon. So we'll have that, if we go that way, board, we'll come to Mr. Shaver probably right away early fall and come to you and let you know what I think he is.
So the waiver would be in place, as my understanding, for this year's group of students. It's too late to make any kind of changes for next year because of schedules and everything else that we have, but there may be a possibility unrelated to the waiver that we may reconsider the algebra at the 8th grade level. Further questions or discussion?
Well,
I have a student that's going into that, and she's extremely excited, so I hate for that to go away as far as an 8th grade algebra. She is excited, and I mean, she lived to get on it. She waited for her report, just like her letter in the mail that accepted her. And so my question would be, you're saying that they're worried that they didn't, it's a little bit further along in Algebra 1 that they're testing on, that they didn't get to?
No.
Or what are you afraid that they
The
were?
Common Core standards have dramatically changed the way algebra is being tested more than anything, okay? And the teachers weren't aware that they were going to be, kids were going to be required to answer questions in such a way that typically what it is, it's a question, it is simply you do the problem, you circle the answer. Now they're thinking we don't know this, we're going off what other people are kind of just telling us, we haven't seen it. But now what we believe they're making them do is put in the actual formula. And if that formula is off in any way, shape, or form, the whole question's wrong. And that's not math. We don't agree with that whole strategy. But so that's what we think we're going to see this year. We don't know yet, Steve. We'll know more this week. And if it's still coming back down to us, our kids doing just simple algebra, they'll do great on it. We don't know how they're going to do with those other things because we've not necessarily taught totally that way. Although I have to say, and I'm going to give serious kudos to my math people, they have done a tremendous job of getting discussion into math and looking for multiple ways to solve the problem. It's been some of the best discussions I've ever seen in our math rooms ever. This year is fantastic teaching going on in our math department. So I'm not as convinced that we're going to do poorly on it as some of these other schools have done. I think we might surprise ourselves.
Well, and then
We'll find out.
instead of getting rid of the math algebra, maybe just make it a little more difficult to enter. So that way the guys that are more self-motivated can still have that opportunity.
Well, yeah, and I
Because
think the
otherwise
biggest,
it's
I think that's a
piece
discussion
is,
for another day.
Yeah, that's a whole
Because that's
different
another
topic.
whole serious layer of the onion, and I think I'd like to really be able to talk to you when I can come back with some things on
That's a
that.
whole different topic.
Because that can be can have really serious ramifications on the other end for other kids.
and I think that's from where I'm at is, we want to really make sure
Yeah.
that the kids that are doing the algebra are taking the math at the end, because that is important later on.
That can have ramifications for
Yeah.
the kids who are just normal, good old math kids
Yeah.
too. And I want to talk about that a little bit in a different environment. When we can bring you the actual data, that's what we need to be able to show you some things. But I know where you're heading, Steve. Maybe that's part of our discussion.
Can the juniors and seniors take college algebra?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's what our hope is, you know, they run through our system, and then when they get to their senior year, instead of not taking a math, now they can take this dual credit
That's
college
what I was
algebra
thinking.
and keep pushing. So, but they haven't had that option in the past.
Well, and really, you might even be, at that point, you'll be able to test out of that algebra class because you've already had it, and therefore
Right.
you can go into calculus
Yep.
at a college level
Yeah.
while you're still in high school, which would be extremely important
Mhm.
when you get to that college year, because now you tested out not only the algebra, the remedial calculus class, and you're off and running.
Yeah, that's our hope. I think the big thing is those kids that are taking the algebra, we want to make sure that they are taking math their last year.
And I think anybody in here that's ever raised a senior, knows how difficult sometimes it is to get them to do those things you want them to do.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's
It's that
exactly right.
piece.
But our issue is the waiver for the 1 year that we actually have our motion on. Further questions or discussions relative to that? Hearing none, then all in favor of, for this academic year, that we follow the recommendation of the administration and the Department of Education to waive then the core portion of the testing. We're still gonna do the testing, but the norming of that will be set locally rather than by state standard.
Correct.
All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare the motion is passed. Thank you, Dr. Cook.
Thanks, Coach.
You know, on administrative report, we forgot one thing. There's a gentleman in the back who's got a clip on his there that he's, anything you want to add, Ben?
Nope.
Okay.
I appreciate the year. Probably won't see me until next year.
We hope we don't see you. If we do, it's not maybe a good deal, right?
Maybe not. So, unless you have any questions, I don't have anything.
Well, again, I, on behalf of the board and I think the patrons of the district, we certainly want to thank you for the job you have done and developed the resource officer into as, you know, that's a dream that you've had for a long period of time, and I think we're very, very fortunate that both the city, the county, and the district were able to cooperate on that and bring us an excellent person also.
I appreciate it. Hopefully it continues here, so.
You'll be back on nights now?
Be back on nights.
I guess one other thing for the board members who weren't there, we're kind of regressing back. Deanne Jensen was named our Teacher of the Year at the awards banquet, and Jean Hegg was named the classified employee from the elementary school. So it was good to have those folks recognized. Thank you, Cammie. All right, anything else then? We'll move on to item number 14, which is consider approval of special education staff summer hours. Mr. Brooks has brought those up. Ms. Kinger, anything you want to add to that other than what's on the list?
No, we have about 40 kids planning on attending here at the school. That is our 3 to high school age. And we have it up here just so we have access to the kitchen also for those high school kids. Right now, we are not providing services to any birth to 3, but they can come up at any time during the summer. So I left that at the bottom still, just in case we do have to do some evaluations and provide services.
And this is very traditional of what we've seen in other
Yes.
summers and things, so. With that, I guess I would entertain a motion that we consider approval of the special education staff summer hours. So moved by Mrs. Thompson. Mr. Moore, would you like the second? Mr. Moore has the second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the special education summer hours, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Mr. Brooks, you're next. Preliminary budget.
Okay, preliminary budget. We'll have our budget hearing at the next meeting. We're going to go line by line in detail, but I thought just to give the overalls and then a little top 10 list of the biggest changes of the year. But just to quick look through, this is very similar, or this is almost identical except for the numbers we'll publish into the paper. There'll be between preliminary proposals, maybe a few changes. But you can see each of our funds along the top and going straight down the numbers within those line items. You can see here's our preliminary budget, which is the one that's being shown down here. Then here's the current year budget that we're in right now. So you can see kind of in the preliminary that the general fund looks to go down about 33,000. The capital outlay fund looks to go down 160,000. The special education fund looks to go up about 8,000. The pension fund looks to go up about 60,000. Bond redemption to go down about 36,000. The food service to go down about 20,000. Driver's ed to go up 173, and the health plan to go up about 29,600 for an overall total budget of a decrease of about 155,000. So that's the overall net effect. The bottom right hand corner show that first. As we look, you can kind of see in the general fund where our revenue comes from. This top line I was on the top, so it's very prevalent. Everybody can see it. What we're projecting to use from fund balance. In the general fund about 229, capital outlay 220, special ed 38, pension 58, bond redemption to put back 16, and then in the driver's ed to put back about $300. So that's kind of how the fund balance usage is. Then I'll just kind of go through where we're going to get in, projected to get in local revenue, which is our local taxes, our county apportionments, it's the next line, our state revenues, To the next line, our federal programs. In each of these is broken out by funds. And our total budget dollar amounts. So that's the revenue side. On the expenditure side, got it all on one thing.
One nice size.
Isn't that size just right? Took a little practice to get that. You can see by the funds are getting across the top. Or across, it must reflect off across the top. You can see where our elementary function, our middle school function, high school functions, special programs functions, what they are from each fund that we'll spend, what we have in our support services through each fund, our non-public school, for the private schools in the district for services we provide, our foundation office, our driver's education, this is 15 over there. I don't know if you maybe can't see my red dot or, and then along the bottom, our other activities are early retirements, the machine leases, our debt service payments, our co-curriculars, our self-insurance costs, contingencies, along those line items. So that's the preliminary in one page. I did create then a top 10 list of the largest changes, just so you can kind of see where the big changes are. Number 10.
You know he's gonna retire soon.
Is he dropping the top 10? Oh, mine's not near as cool. The federal Medicaid revenue is projected to decrease about 14,000. So the money we get from the Medicaid into our general fund is estimated to decrease in this next year. The number 9 budget changer is the removal of the nurse position. Our recommendation is not to bring that position back, and there'll probably be discussion on that in the future, but that's a $15,138 change. Number 8 is our OT-PT services. It's projected they'll be up from this year by about $19,000. Our number 7 is we're bringing back a severe special education teacher position that we left vacant last year and bring back for this year. That's a $43,310 change. Number 6 budget changer is our district-wide electricity charges. Our electrical budget is projected to go up about $47,000 in this next year. Number 5, which is kind of an exciting one, is a reduction of the opt-out. We're looking to reduce our opt-out by $50,000. So that'd be a big budget change of $50,000. Number 4 is bringing back the 4th section of the 5th grade, that teaching assignment. That's a $50,286 change. Our number 3 is our reduction in out-of-district placements. That's an $82,380 savings on there. Our number 2 budget changer is the all staff salary increases, what we did through negotiations with all our staff. That totaled $140,514.
And hold on.
And the number 1 big budget changer is our state general fund formula, which is a big part of our formula, but the formula from the state increased $143,571 on that. And number 1. So those changes account for probably 97% of all dollar changes within the budget from year to year. I mean, there's a lot of small changes back and forth of less than $1,000 back and forth, but that's our big changes for the year on that. I guess when we go through the budget hearing, we'll go through the dollar amounts, the millage requests, and those types of items. I guess what we look at as the board, if you have feedback, something you like, don't like on there.
Is it anticipated that any of the elementary classes are going to maybe be adding another section?
We pull up numbers as of the end of April, unless we have move-ins. There isn't. There's one class getting close to maybe going to a 3 section. Still maybe 8 or 9 away, but so there isn't at this time. Yes, this is just from what we looked at our end of the year numbers. We have 2 classes with 96 K through 12, and then 3 with 95. Those are our big classes.
Further questions? So then what we would do tonight is we would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary budget And then, once we've approved the preliminary budget, then the next agenda item that we deal with would be to set the budget hearing, which would be the formal hearing in June.
We should probably say acknowledge.
Acknowledge rather than approve, okay? So I guess I would entertain a motion that we acknowledge receipt of, would that be the way we
Yeah.
want it? Acknowledge receipt of the preliminary 2015-16 budget.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Thompson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sims. Further questions or discussion? Ryan and Tammy and I served on the budget committee. We had an opportunity to, all we can say is this is much simpler than the explanation that we had. We had a much more thorough explanation. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for your hard work on the budget. I think you've done a wonderful job of working and going forward with that and things. So further questions or discussion on acknowledgement of the preliminary budget?
I think that one of the highlights of what Mitchell has proposed here in the preliminary is the district being able to lower its request in the opt-out and in levy request. And we can talk about that more when we have the hearing in June, but kind of a remarkable change, to say the least, I think.
Yes.
And to be able to do that for our taxpayers at this in this situation that we are in as a state and with a lot of school districts, well, they just simply don't have that option. And so we at Madison Central are able to do this. Speaks highly, and still have a good solid budget.
Okay. Further questions, discussion on the acknowledgement of the preliminary budget? Hearing none, all in favor of acknowledgement of the preliminary budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that motion has passed. Next is to set our budget hearing for 6 p.m. on June 8th, which is our regular board meeting in the month of June. I would accept the motion to set that date.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Sims. Further questions or discussion on setting the date for the budget hearing as being June 8th at 6 p.m.? Hearing none, all in favor of setting that budget hearing for June 8th at 6 p.m. signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next, you want to go back to the agenda then, Mitch, out of your budget figures?
Yes, yeah.
I know you're proud that it fit and everything, and so are we. You made it very easy to read. All right, next one then is item number 17, to consider membership in the Buy Board National Purchasing Cooperative. Mr. Brooks, explain that one to us.
What this is, there's no cost for membership, but you do have to join to be able to view their pricing, and they take bids nationally, state, locally, from around. And I hear from a couple schools that there's certain items that they have priced very well. So what this would help us do is to see what the pricing is and what we're getting. And if they have LED bulbs for $11 each, we buy a ton of them. I mean, we can see what's out there available. So by joining this group, we'd be able to see what the pricing is and what items they have out there. There are a number of schools, I believe it's Watertown is one of them that does use this and then does log in and look at what their pricing and stuff is. So that's why I was kind of brought forward was that we went up to our state convention and this was something that was talked about, and I'd kind of like to see, you know, if we buy a lot of things off state pricing, let's see if this is much different.
And it's also something that is administered by the Associated School Boards
yeah.
of South Dakota also on there, so.
Is it an annual membership or lifetime membership? Or you said there's no cost.
Yeah, there's
so
no
I don't
cost.
know.
I think we just need to have, I don't know why they didn't say have a bring to board for the membership, because most co-ops don't, but I think because the Associated School Boards maybe, I don't know if it's annual or not, it doesn't say. Yeah, I think we're actually, once we're in, we're in.
Until we decide to go out or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the Madison Central School District become a part of the Buy Board National Purchasing Cooperative. Does someone wish to make a motion to that effect?
So,
So moved by Mr. Moore, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson, further questions, discussion on the Buy Board National Purchasing Cooperative. All in favor of joining that, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Item number 18, consider candidates for the board of the South Dakota High School Activities Association. Come on, candidates. Okay. We have different categories that we have to vote on. Mr. Schaefer, do you want to take over on this, or?
Well, on your screen there is the one that I have here, that I'm looking at in my material. This is the one where any member school may nominate a person for the position, and all member schools have the opportunity to vote. So this is wide open, you might say. And the candidates are Steve Moore from Watertown, Mo Rusing from Sioux Valley, Brad McDonald from Tri-Valley, and Mike Schmidt from Wilmot High School. And I think for the most part, you've had the resumes delivered to you or by way of this link. But today there was one added, and it unfortunately wasn't in there, from Mike Schmidt, or excuse me, from, that's not this group, sorry. That's the West Central guy, that's later. So these are all entitled, all involved in this, and you have the link to look at their resumes and the schools they represented, and et cetera. So from our perspective, the way we typically do this is I talk to Bud and I talk, and we come with a recommendation. Is that what she would like?
That's what I would like. We'd like a recommendation, I believe.
Well, for the most part, we try to go with somebody that's, you know, in the neighborhood, so to speak, and not too far away. And we have had a strong relationship with Tri-Valley School and Brad McDonald from down there, so that's the recommendation that comes forward from the administrative group for your recommendation to consider Brad McDonald from Tri-Valley High School.
Okay, now, should we just lump all of these together, or do you want to do individual?
Yeah, I'd be on that.
So,
Okay.
so the recommendation on that one would be McDonald because of proximity, size, relationships, conference,
I guess that'd be true.
and in there, okay?
And the next one is the, very similar, but this is called a Small Group Board of Education Representative. And so this is, any member school may nominate a person for this position, and all member schools have the opportunity to vote. And it's a school board member from these schools. All these individuals, these 5 individuals are on school board members in their respective district. And this is the one where the resume came in today, and I apologize for having that in the first group, Brian Skinner from West Central. And so you have Gary Darrow from Edgemont, Mike Olson from Benny Conning, Monty Wagner from Platte Geddes, David Plantine from Langford, and Brian Skinner from West Central. And I read his resume when it came in this morning, and I kind of recognized his name and recognized the fact probably because he's been an umpire and a football official, et cetera, that I know we've had him before. So I talked to Bud Postman, the activities director. He has a prior knowledge of Brian Skinner, and we end up coming forward with the recommendation from the administration for your consideration to look at Brian Skinner from West Central.
Any recommendation there for Mr. Skinner? Now, the final one, I don't know on.
Well, this one's a little more ambiguous, actually, but there's been a lot of discussion for, well, quite some time in how to in the leadership, you might say. Oh, what, are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at
Oh, that one, that one.
Do you have a recommendation on that one?
Now, I was moving on to the amendment. I figured this was a slam dunk, but actually, when Mr. Postman came back and said nobody ran against him and he was unopposed, so it looked like he was gonna make it. I said, give me a minute, we'll make some phone calls, try to get somebody to run against you. But actually, yes, Bud Postma does run unopposed, so he is in. And I think Mr. Postma will do a very nice job. I'm not sure that I told him today, I said, I'm not sure you know what you're getting into. No, not that I know what you're getting into, but it's gonna be an interesting next couple, 3 years at the high school activities level, so. But good, bad, or otherwise, Bud Postma's run unopposed, so he'll represent us and everybody else to the best of his abilities.
Okay, so item number 18 is the candidates. We have further discussion, and then we take a motion, and we look at Mr. McDonald, Mr. Skinner, and Mr. Postma. Anyone wish to make that motion that we would cast our ballot for Brad McDonald of Tri-Valley, Brian Skinner of West Central, and Bud Postma of Madison? So, okay, Mr. Moore moves that we accept that slate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hague. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of casting the ballot for McDonald, Skinner, and Postma, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Declare that those are who our votes will be cast for. Next, the proposed constitutional amendment, and I am looking forward to your explanation, because after I read that, I was more confused than before.
Well, welcome to my world then. But from what I understand about this, and I don't get too engaged in this organization, but the amendment would allow for another, you might say a division. I don't mean a division in classification, but I mean at the board level, up in Peter at the headquarters. In the past, you've heard about the issue of Sioux Falls and Rapid City and not having a chance to be at the table because of well, they're simply unable to get elected. And so what this does is allows for one more member to be representing the constituents, or actually the students in the activities of all types. And when you think about it, when the two larger schools don't have anybody at the table, what a large percentage of students, so to speak, are not being represented at the table. From my perspective, and I've talked this over with Bud 2-3 different times, and we are fine with it. We think it's probably time that we do that. I can't begin to tell you all the nuances, so to speak, with this proposal, and I'm not sure that it's that significant, to tell you the truth. But there will be some minor adjustments that will ripple down through as far as representatives go. But the short of the story is, we are going to recommend to you that you approve the amendment number 1 with a yes, and recognize the fact that in order for it to pass, the proposal must receive a 60% plurality or 60% approval from all school districts in the state. I have no way of knowing how other school districts are going to vote for this. Not that I really think that we care about it. From the way I look at it, I think it's about fairness and equal opportunity for representation at the table. And I would recommend, along with Mr. Postma, that we vote yes for amendment number 1.
We would fit then into the new Division 3, is that where we would fall?
I think that's true.
Okay. So then our ratio would go from 1 in 143 to 1 in 36, so.
And that'd be kind of good for us, I think.
So we have a recommendation of, to vote in favor of the proposed amendment. Anyone wish to make a motion? We can have discussion following. Okay, Mr. Hague makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Further questions or discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of the passage of the proposed constitutional amendment for the High School Activities Association signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that motion has passed. Item number 20, Mr. Brooks wants to pay some debt early.
It was really hard to word how this should be on the agenda. We went back and forth a million ways, but we tried to get as much word in there without doing too much. But what we're looking at doing is this, our regular payment will come out, it'll come in the next board meeting, and you'll see it in the packet for the elementary. And then there's one payment meeting after that. It would be scheduled for June then of 2016. If we pay it on July 1st, we would save $17,000, just a tad over $17,000 in interest by calling that debt and paying it early. And what we would be doing is, money we have set aside in like CDs and stuff aren't returning the same kind of interest we have on the loan. So instead of earning $2,000 on that money, we can call this debt, pay it off, use our own. In essence, finance ourselves and then save that $17,000. So that's what I'm kind of asking you to consider on that. Just calling that payment, we're paying it in the same fiscal year, same budget year, just paying on July 1st instead of June 15th. And we're saving the interest portion on that. And then with that, let me just on a side note, that means like two bonds, one that pays off, smaller bonds that pays off by next year in June, and then one that doesn't pay off until 2023. But then that's what's left in the elementary. This is the large one of 500 and they have it somewhere, 500 and this payment, the total amount is $575,000. What we'll be paying in July 1st.
So we have a recommendation that we simply prepay by calling that capital outlay certificate, thus saving the district approximately $17,000 in interest. We certainly have the funds available that we could, it's not going to short the cash, would come out of next year's budget anyway. So we just simply move the date of the payment up.
And we'd be making the payment, the money will come in as the taxes come in. Typically, normally we get the money and then make the payment. Now we're making the payment and the money will come in to pay us back. We'll be cash flowing from our other funds.
Move to approve.
Mr. Nelson moves to approve that.
Second.
And Mr. Moore seconds the motion then, that we do the final early debt payment of the elementary school out of the capital outlay certificates, number 1. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Declare the motion is passed. Number 21, a motion for adjournment. Oh, let's see, all right. Mrs. Sims gets it tonight, Mrs. Thompson gets the second. My right ear is better than my left, maybe, is what we're gonna say.
Maybe you want to move back, Ryan.
All in favor, maybe he wants to stay where he's at. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Declare the meeting adjourned.